Welcome to Special Guest Thursdays, where real voices bring real stories to life. This ain't just an interview. This is a spotlight on those making moves. Different paths, different struggles, different wins. But one thing in common, they showed up and leveled up. We're sitting down with leaders, creators, and game changers to talk pressure, purpose, and the mindset behind the grind. No scripts, no filters, just real. Because every guest brings gems, and every story brings power. This is the Final Boss Podcast, and this is Special Guest Thursdays. Tap in and tune up.
Welcome to the Final Boss Podcast. Special Guest Thursday, Special Guest Thursdays, and I got a treat for you tonight. Guess what? The special guest. There is no special guest. Look, tonight we're going to be doing something different, right? We're going to be doing something different tonight, and I want you guys to stay with me, right? I'm going to wear it just because there's no special doesn't mean there's a special show. So it is a special show. And tonight we're going to be diving into a topic, man, that's been heavy on my mind. And it's the perfect timing to a part of the season 4, arc 4 construction, rebirth and construction, right? It's the perfect time to do this. So bear with me. I was thinking about continuing the town hall from the other day, but town halls are so heavy, man. I couldn't do a town hall back to back, right? And we got a guest coming on, and a very, very important guest coming on too. So I want to allocate that time and space and clear and make sure that they are good to go when they get here. So tonight. Oh, before we get started, the greeting of the day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is the greeting of the day. And man, it's good to be here, right? It's good to be here, right? And you know, I can't complain, man. Cannot complain. So this is for entertainment purposes only. Entertainment purposes only. Right. So, episode number 2 for the construction, right? Tonight, we're going to be talking about something I decided to call the slide rule, right? The slide rule. But before we get into that, man, make sure you, if you haven't, go get All Aboard the Fired Up Train, where all books are sold, right? It's an Amazon bestseller. Go pick that up. If you haven't had a chance to see all of our episodes and you would like to see all of our episodes, go back on our website at www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. It's www.thefinalbosspodcast.com, and you can see all of our episodes out there, right? You want to get your emails or your questions in for the town hall, for the next town hall, make sure you email us at info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. So that's the admin notes. Got the admins out, the notes out the way, and we get ready to get into a nice show. Hey, Chikandi, what's going on? All right, we got a few people in the building. Some of the our most faithful of the community, smarts, final bosses, warriors, and motivators. I see you guys, right? But before we go and get into the meat and potatoes of tonight, we're going to do the brass tacks, right? And here's the brass tacks, and it comes from another. Built to move you. The only thing making a ride rough, your hands on the sides. All right, about a sliding board. So, when you go down the sliding board. It was hot, but you were still on the playground. And then you decided to make things rough for you as you were going down and put your hands on the sides. And you got blisters and burns because it was so hot. Y'all remember that, right? We taking this back to childlike care, right? And that's going to be part of the discussion tonight because it's necessary to have those memories and go back to those times so we can reflect, right? And reflect in how those principles show up in our everyday life right now as adults, right? So, right? Let's get into it. There was a moment, right, in your life, right? In your life where there's a point where you were involved in something past the moment that you should have been involved in it. And you knew it, right? You knew it was time to go, but you stayed in it, right? And when you stay in that, it costs you time, money, resources, right? And things that you can't replace, right? And I want to talk about how every moment that you do that, it's costing you. It is costing you a cost. We talked about the tax costs like a few episodes ago, right? But tonight I'm talking about something personal in this case, right? Because I stayed past the moment that I knew what was done, and it cost me 24 hours of the life I was supposed to have been building. And that's not a metaphor, right? That's 8,395 days, right? And I'm naming that number tonight so somebody in this room stops counting theirs, right? This is for you, right? We learn from each other, man. Talked about community, talked about that last night, man. Go watch last night's episode of Merger, man. You'll learn something, right? So here's an uncomfortable verdict. The resistance is not protecting you. It is billing you, right? You ever watch a kid freeze at the top of a sliding board, gripping the slides? You know what I'm talking about. You did it, right? Right? They locked up, or your children have done it. If people still take their kids to the playground, I don't know, right? My daughter, she's 18. I'm long past those moments. But I'm telling you, seen it. The kids get to the top of the sliding board, man. They're gripping the sides. They're locked up. They're like, I don't want to go. I'm too scared to go. And you know what happens next? Somebody behind them gets tired of waiting and gives them a little nudge, right? And they slide anyway. And as they're going down, they're laughing, they tickled, and they're just having a grand old time, right? And then they want to do it again, right? They want to do it again. And here's the question I need you to sit. I need to sit with you tonight, right? What if the thing you've been gripping so hard is the exact thing that has been stopping your ride, right? You see how I did that? You see how I did that? Don't answer that question yet, right? We will get there in a moment, right? But I need you to stay with me past that moment and sit with it, right? Because what I'm about to show you will change the way you see every hard season you've ever walked through. So stay locked in. We are live, and it is special guest Thursdays solo edition, episode number 259. I am the one and only, the final boss, right? And if this is your first time here, you're in the right place. You're part of the community. We're on this journey together, right? Final Boss Nation, Final Boss community, Final Boss family, right? Knee deep in the rebirth, right? Arc for the construction, right? And I need you to understand this, right? This is not a hype show, right? This is not a feel-good show. This is a construction site, right? That's what we're doing. We're in the construction arc, right? And every episode this season is laying a foundation that most people would never understand until you are standing on top of what you built, right? And tonight is no different, right? Tonight is no different. So I called the topic the slide rule, right? Because I was reminiscing, right? And I want you to hear me when I tell you, right? It's not motivation speech. It's not about positivity. This is a structural lesson about how life actually works and why most people are failing, right? So a lot of people are failing right now, man. You see it all up and down your timeline or your social media. You see it on the news. It's everywhere. People are complaining. Their lives are miserable. They got a lot going on, and the weight is so heavy. It's becoming unbearable, right? I had a soldier who I was having a conversation with who had been talking about committing and unaliving themselves on several occasions because they're in a rut. I provided information for them to contact the VA, right? To receive some of those resources. But it's heavy for a lot of people. And it's not because people lack talent. It's not because they lack opportunity, but because they are gripping the sides of a slide of the sliding board that was built to move them forward. Right now, let me paint the scene. Right, imagine. Let's go back in time. Right, let's go back in time to when you were a kid and things were bright and wonderful. Right, and all you had to do was put your clothes on and tie your shoes, right? That was the gist of your responsibility, right? Everything else you were told, and you either obeyed or you didn't. But if you didn't obey, there were consequences, right? But imagine you're 6 years old again, right? Let's take that in. I'm 6 years old. I'm 6 years old. I'm 6 years old, right? And you're at a park and you climb the ladder and you get to the top and you sit down and then you freeze, right? And you look down and something in your brain says, oh, this is too fast. This is too steep. This is too far. So you grip, right? And it's 1,000 degrees outside and your hands are definitely feeling it. You white knuckle the sides of the side and you just sit there, right? You just sit there, hands on fire. Right? And the whole line behind you starts to back up. And what happens? Well, you know what happens. I just told you what happens, right? Somebody nudges you, right? And you sit there, right? Until the embarrassment gets worse and it's worse than fear. Either way, you slide, right? And here's what nobody told you when you were 6. And here's what nobody is telling you right now. That freeze response was never about the slide. It was about control. You wanted to control the speed. You wanted to control the landing. You wanted to control the guarantee that the outcome was in your favor before you committed to the motion, right? And that instinct, that very human, very understandable instinct is the same instinct that has you stuck right now, right? Not stuck on a playground, but stuck in a relationship you outgrew 2 years ago, stuck in a job that stopped challenging you before the pandemic, stuck in a version of yourself that used to make sense. The sliding board is still there. You climbed the ladder, you're at the top, and you are gripping the sides, right? Look, the rebirth does not mean everything is comfortable, right? The construction means we are actively building while the old structure is coming down. That means there are going to be moments in this arc where you feel like you're falling and building at the same time. But that's not a malfunction. That is the process, right? And nobody knows this more than the smarts community, right? And my smarts, I need you to clock this in from an analytical standpoint, right? Final bosses, this is your operating manual for the next chapter, right? And motivators, this is the one thing going into your toolkit tonight. Warriors, you already know how to move through discomfort. And tonight, I'm going to show you why the ones who let go first always land better, right? One rule: you stay, you listen, You let the lesson do what the lesson was built to do. The sliding board rule is in session, right? So let's talk about why you grip in the first place, right? You sit there on the sliding board, it's 1,000 degrees, and your hands are on fire, and you're gripping the sides, right? Because truth be told, it's not a character flaw, right? And I want to set the record straight on that, right? The grip is not weakness. The grip is a survival response that got promoted to a life strategy without your permission, right? When your train senses speed, right? Or I'm sorry, when your brain, I said train. I got the fired up. Speaking of which, let's get the fired up train in the building, right? When your brain senses speed, when it senses loss of control, when it senses an outcome it cannot predict, it fires a signal. That signal says, hold on, right? Stabilize. Do not release until you have more information, right? That signal was designed for survival. Your ancestors needed that signal when something was actually trying to unalive them, right? The problem is your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a predator and a promotion, right? Between a threat and a transition, between danger and destiny, right? So it does what it was built to do. It grips, right? It holds the body still. It buys time, right? And in the moment, it feels like wisdom. You feel super smart, right? It feels like discernment, right? It feels like you're being careful, being strategic, being smart. But here is the hard truth that most people would never sit with, right? They won't sit with this. They won't sit with it long enough to even feel it, right? What feels like patience is office paralysis. What feels like strategy is often avoidance dressed up in a plan, right? The slide board does not care about your plan. The slide has one function. It moves things from the top to the bottom, right? And the only variable it cannot account for is friction. Friction in physics, friction in life. And what does that do? It creates resistance, right? The harder you grip, the slower you move. The hotter it gets, the worse the ride feels. Not because the slide failed, but because you fought the design, right? The construction lens is critical right here in this moment, right? Season 4, Arc 4 is not about being reckless. And I'm not telling you to abandon everything and leap in without looking, right? The construction is about understanding the architecture of your next chapter, right? And the architecture requires you to understand load-bearing walls versus decorative ones. Some things you are holding on to right now are load-bearing, and they matter, right? They're structural. Keep those, right? But a lot of what you are gripping right now is decorative. It's cosmetic. It is habit masquerading as necessity, right? Necessity. And the job that stopped growing you 2 years ago that you're stuck at, that friendship that only functions when you need something, the identity your family gave you before you were old enough to choose, the version of success that someone else defined and you adopted because you were young and needed a map, right? Those are load-bearing walls. Those are wallpaper, right? And you have been treating wallpaper like it's concrete. Look, the rebirth requires demolition before decoration, right? And you cannot demolish what you refuse to release. The grip is not protecting the structure. The grip is protecting the wallpaper. And the wallpaper has got to go, right? Take down that 60s, the 1960s wallpaper, right? Man, let me tell you, that's some good water. Yeah. Smart. I need you to run an audit tonight, right? Identify 3 things you're holding that are decorative, not structural. Final bosses, the ones who built empires, did it by releasing the version of themselves that could not carry the weight of what was coming, right? Motivators, your job in this community is the model, the release, not just preach it, right? And my warriors, you already have survived the thing that was supposed to stop you. Release the grip. The slide was built exactly for this moment, right? So let's go. I hope you're with me, man. I'm on fire right now. This is on a Thursday, right? I usually give these kind of talks on Motivation Mondays, but tonight was necessary. It was necessary, man. I've talked to a lot of people today, and I felt it on my heart to bring this forward, right? So here's something that should shake you, right? And kids already know this. Kids already know this, right? They are born knowing it, right? Watch a toddler learn how to walk. What they do? They will fall and they will get up. They do not schedule a meeting with themselves to process the fall. They do not post about the fall. They do not form a support group about the fall. They stand up and then they try again because the body has not yet learned to negotiate with forward motion, right? And at some point between childhood and adulthood, something gets installed in us, right? Call it conditioning, call it trauma, call it socialization, whatever you call it, it is the result of something. And the result is the same. And we start to believe that the fall means something about us, that the stumble is a verdict, that the speed is a threat. Then the moment we start believing, we start gripping, right? And the grip becomes the default. And the default becomes the identity. And now you're not a person who is temporarily hesitating. You are a person who does not take risk. You are a person who is careful. You are a person who waits, right? But watch children on the playground. Truly watch them. They negotiate danger in real time. They not stand at the bottom of the monkey bars and catalog every possible way they could fall. They grab the first bar and they figure out the rest while they're moving. They jump in a swing and swing as high as they can, and then they let go. And next thing you know, they think they're in an airborne trooper, right? They think they're airborne trooper without a parachute, right? Jumping out of a perfectly good swing with no parachute, right? That's what kids do. Fearless. And it's not reckless. It is intelligence operating at full capacity before fear has a chance to slow it down, right? The rebirth is asking every single one of us to recover that, right? Not the naivete, right? Not the absence of wisdom, but the willingness to commit to the motion before the outcome is guaranteed. Because here's the thing about guaranteed outcomes. They do not exist. Every single thing you have accomplished in your life, you have accomplished it without a guarantee, right? Think about it. Think about your accomplishments right now. Everything you've ever accomplished in life. Think about it. Those things, you accomplished them without a guarantee. You didn't know, right? But you did it anyway, right? You just moved anyway, right? And somewhere along the way, you talked yourself into believing you needed more certainty before you could move again, right? You don't need more certainty. You need less grip, right? Look, the construction phase is where we rebuild the operating system, right? And the first line of code we are rewriting tonight is the one that says, wait until it's safe. Because safe is not a destination. Safe is a feeling. And the feelings are managed, not chased. The playground was never safe. The monkey bars were never guaranteed. The slide was never risk-free. And swings definitely weren't meant to be jumped out of without a parachute, right? But kids did anyway. They rolled anyway, right? And they laughed and they grew and they became us. The people who knew in their bodies that motion produces outcomes that stillness never can, right? And I watched my daughter on the playground once, right? She climbed on top of something that made my chest tight just looking at it, right? And she did not even look down for approval. She looked forward and she went, and my heart stopped, right? Dead in my chest. And I realized standing there that the thing I wanted to protect her from was the very thing that was building her. The forward motion, the commitment to the ride, the willingness to let the structure do what the structure was designed to do. That is the slide rule, right? That's the slide rule. Let the structure work, right? Smarts, document when you stop trusting the structure. Final bosses, the empire you are building has a design. Trust it. Motivators, show up to this community as proof as the motion works. And warriors, forward is the only direction that matters tonight, right? So, at the top of the episode, I asked you a question, right? And that question was, what if the thing you've been gripping so hard is the exact thing that has been stopping your ride, right? And I told you I was going to answer it. So here it is. It is full stop, right? Full stop. Where's my red flag? Red flag. Flag on the play. Oh, I got it around here somewhere. Oh. Flag on the play. Flag on the play. Flag on the play, right? Think about it, right? Think about it. Full stop. And there's no qualifier. There's no exception to that. There's no exception clause. There's no footnotes. Just full stop. And the thing you're holding right now, the plan that has not moved in 6 months, the thing that you keep saying you're going to get to, the conversation you've been rehearsing but never have, right? The business you've been researching instead of launching, the book you've been outlining instead of writing. That thing is not waiting for the right moment. It is waiting for you to let go of the side of the slide, right? Resistance is not neutral. This is not part of this is the part most people miss. They think holding on is a passive act, right? They think the grip is just maintenance, but resistance has a cost that compounds daily. Every day you hold the slide of the slide, you're paying that tax. I told you about the tax, right? You're paying it in energy spent managing attention. You're paying it in sleep loss to circular thinking. You're paying it to a relationship strained by a version of you that is half present because the other half is still at the top of the slide negotiating with gravity, right? And gravity doesn't negotiate. Gravity does not care about your timeline. Gravity doesn't care about your issues, right? And neither does life. Neither does life, right? The window that was open last year is already smaller. The version of the opportunity that existed before your hesitation is already a different shape. You have not been standing still. You've been moving backwards while convincing yourself you were being patient, right? The rebirth is the moment you decide the ride is worth the speed. The construction is you building the landing zone while you're still in the air. Both of those things require the same first act. It's time to release, right? Look, I've been speaking on a lot of my personal life, right? A lot of it. And you know, I talked about the safety net that I had, right? And I talked about how the safety net that most people spend their whole careers trying to protect. And I want to be clear about something, right? That was not brave, right? Brave implies it was optional. It was necessary because the version of you that was gripping the career could not carry what was coming, right? And then I look at myself and the things that I've built, right? Including Sat DigiNet, just graduating my master's, right? The SDVSOB company, right? The doctoral program, all the network, the books, the platform, all of it, right? None of it could coexist if I was still holding on to the slide. If my grip didn't let up, something had to go. And the thing that had to go was the thing I was the most afraid to release. And that's how it always works. The thing you're most afraid to let go of is almost always the thing that is most in the way, right? It's the most comfort, right? So tonight, I'm not asking you to be fearless. Fear is real and fear is data. I'm asking you to be moving. I'm asking you to grip the mission tighter than you grip the outcome. I'm asking you to trust the design of the slide enough to take your hands off the sides, right? Smart. The cost of the grip is quantifiable, calculated. Final bosses, what you release tonight makes room for what you have been asking for. You heard what I just said. I see your comments. It's time for you to release. You identify. Erica, I'm talking to you. I see your comment. Listen, that one thing you identify as a final boss. You need to release tonight and make room for what you've been asking for. That thing that you've been asking for, you need to release so you can have it, right? Motivators, the community is watching you move first, right? Show them how it's done. Warriors, you've survived worse than the fast slide. Let it go, let it move, and let it work, right? So let's get specific, right? Let's get specific about the cost, because vague pain is easy to ignore. Specific pain demands a response, right? Friction is a physics term for those who didn't know, right? When two surfaces resist each other, energy is lost as heat. That energy is gone. It does not return. It does not convert into something useful. It burns off into the atmosphere, and the system ends up with less power than it started with. That is not a metaphor. That is thermodynamics, right? And your life runs on the same law. Every point of resistance in your life is returning energy that was supposed to go somewhere. The relationship that has been on its last leg for 3 years is not just emotionally draining. It's operationally expensive. It is consuming bandwidth that was supposed to run your vision. The argument you keep having internally about whether you made the right choice 2 years ago is not reflection. It is friction. It is heat with no output. It is the energy leaving your system and returning nothing, right? The destruction is asking you to do an energy audit, not a time audit, not a money audit, an energy audit. Where's your power going right now? And of the places it is going, how many of them are producing forward motion versus generating heat? Most people have never done this audit, right? Because the honest version of it is uncomfortable, right? The honest version reveals that a significant portion of your daily output is a friction tax. It is the cost of maintaining resistance. It is the overhead of staying gripped. And once you see it, you can unsee it, right? And here's what the friction tax looks like in real life. You wake up tired, even though you slept. That's friction tax. You finish your day at work and you feel like you accomplished nothing that even mattered, right? That's friction tax. You have a vision of your life that gets smaller every time you revisit instead of bigger. That's friction tax. The compound interest of resistance working against you in real time, right? The slide board rule is this. The slide was engineered for a specific function. It was built with a specific angle, a specific surface, a specific design. And when you introduce friction, when you drag your hands along the sides, you do not just slow down the ride. You damage the surface, you leave marks, you burn your hands. And those marks make the next ride harder for you and for everyone else who comes after you, right? Your resistance is not just costing you, it's costing the people who are waiting for you to arrive. The audience that needs what you carry, the community that is looking for the version of you that released the grip, right? Your daughter or son who's watching how you handle the hard seasons. Every person downstream of your destiny is paying a fraction of your friction tax, right? That is the weight of the grip. It's not just personal, it's generational, right? The rebirth is just not about you getting free. It's about what gets free when you do. The work you were sent here to do does not begin until you let it go of the thing that was never yours to hold on to permanently, right? Release is not defeat. Release is deployment, right? Smarts, audit that friction. Audit that friction points this week, right? And name them, qualify them, right? Final bosses, your legacy is downstream of your release. Motivators, the community needs you operating at full capacity, not friction tax. Warriors, you were built for the mission on the other side of the grip. It's time for you to get there, right? And look, I want to make a structural argument tonight because the construction demands it, right? The slide was not an accident. Nothing in the design of your life that is pushing you forward right now is accidental. Nothing in the design of your life that is pushing you forward right now is accidental. The pressure you're feeling is not random. The transition you are in is not punishment. The season that feels like it is collapsing is not a malfunction. It is the design executing exactly the way it's supposed to. You know, most people look at a hard season and ask, what went wrong? They start praying to God and asking God, what did I do wrong? Why am I being punished? And that's the wrong question, right? That's the right question is, what is this designed to do? You see what I did there, right? Because every hard season has a function. There's a lesson, right? Every pressure point has a purpose, right? Every moment of forced motion is the design doing what the design was built to do. And that's to move you, right? Think about the engineering of the slide for a moment, right? Let's think about the slide board, right? The angle is not arbitrary. It was calculated. Too shallow and nothing moves. Too steep and the landing gets dangerous. The angle of your current season was calculated the same way. It is steep enough to create motion. It is designed enough to produce a landing. And it requires the one thing from you, the willingness to stop fighting the angle, right? Stop fighting it. Look, there are a lot of you that are at your job and you're unhappy and you're calling it your career and you're looking forward to finishing it. But tomorrow isn't guaranteed. That blueprint that you have or that you created for yourself, there may be changes to come. What are you going to do, right? What will you do? They just made it easier for the government to fire government employees, tenured people who've been in the government for 20 plus, 30 plus years could get fired for no reason, right? They're thinning it out, right? You got to see the play, right? But look, you did the meaningful work, right? Let's talk about you. You did the meaningful work in many ways, but it was not the angle that what you're trying to do was designed for. You weren't designed for that. And the longer you stay, the more energy you spend compensating on the wrong angle, making the wrong decisions work even harder than they have to, right? And here's the truth. I want you to sit with this, right? That career that you have, it's not bad, right? But the angle was just wrong for what was actually built for you, right? And you feel it in your gut. You feel it. You feel it and you know it, right? Listen, the construction, right? Arc 4 was built for this very reason, right? I'm trying to help as many people through these difficult times, right? A lot of people are transitioning and don't know what angle to move on, right? You just need to move, right? You're putting too much thought into it. You're thinking too hard. You just need to move, right? Life's going to carry you, right? Life is going to carry you, right? And look, the rebirth this season, it's your invitation to stop fighting that angle, right? Stop spending every energy compensating for a design that was never yours to maintain, right? It's time to move on. The thing that is pushing you right now is not your enemy. It is the architect. It is the force that knows where you are supposed to land and is working on your behalf, whether you cooperated with it or not, right? Listen, my grandmother used to say, if you go hard, you can hear. Listen, man, the only choice you have is whether you arrive gracefully or arrive roughed up from fighting the sides the whole way down, right? Listen, God don't play about me, man. And I've had my moments, a lot of them, right? Where I didn't listen. I didn't move when he wanted me to move. And when God wants you to move, if you don't learn, you will feel it, right? You will feel it. I'm trying to tell you, man. I'm trying to save you the pain of the slide, right? Because when God wants you to move, you need to move, right? Full stop. Too many times, man, I've had to learn that lesson the hard way, man. Oh boy, let me tell you, man. No, not anymore. Listen, that's a design argument, right? The slide was built for you. The angle was set before you landed on it or climbed the ladder. The landing was engineered into the structure. The only job is to let it do what it's supposed to do. Let your design work. Stop fighting it, right? Stop fighting what was built to carry you, right? Smarts, study the design and current and in your current season before you label it a problem. Final bosses, the blueprint of your next chapter was drawn before the season started. You need to trust the architect, right? Motivators, model alignment for this community. Show them what it looks like to move with the design. And my warriors, you were not deployed into the season without a mission. Find the angle and ride it, right? That's what you need to do, right? And here's what, hold on. I had to fire up. Let's bring back the fire up train, right? Let's bring up the fire up train, right? Because I want to tell you something important right now, right? And for those who are still here in the chat, or still here, or still watching, right? And you're not just listening, you're totally vested into what I'm saying, right? You, my friend, smarts, motivators, warriors, final bosses, you are in the motion. You made a decision somewhere in the first part of this segment to stay here, right? And that decision is not small. That is evidence that something in this episode is already working on you. Something in you recognized the lesson before the conscious mind can block it, right? And you're already on a slide, right? And here's what it means practically, right? You cannot grip your way back to the top. The decision was made when you climbed the ladder. Whatever transition you're in right now, whatever season that is pressing on you, whatever the thing is that you've been white knuckling for the last 6 months, 2 years, or even a decade. You're still in motion, right? The question is never whether you will go. The question is, how will you go, right? Rough, burning, friction taxed, dragging your hands on both sides, arriving exhausted, beat up, right? And raw, right? Or clean, fast, aligned, arriving with enough energy left to stand up and look for what's next. Those are the only two options because the slide does not have a reverse. Life does not have a reverse. The rebirth does not have a reverse. The construction moves in one direction, and that's forward. And the only variable is how much you resist the motion between here and the landing, right? This is the halfway point of the episode, and I want to use this moment to do something that I haven't always done, right? I want to acknowledge the weight of what some of you are carrying right now because it's real and I understand it and I see it. The transition some of you are in is not small, and I'm not making it small. Some of you are releasing careers, some of you are releasing relationships, some of you are releasing identities that people around you built for you before you were old enough to refuse them. Some of you are releasing grief. Some of you are releasing the version of your life that you planned and did not happen the way you planned it, right? The weight is real, and I'm not minimizing that. I'm not telling you that just let it go like it costs nothing. I'm not saying that, right? I know what release costs. Trust me, I know what release costs, right? I know what it costs to walk away. I know what it costs to be present, right? I know what it costs to be deployed multiple occasions and come back and rebuild yourself from scratch, right? In a civilian world that does not even fully understand what you carry, right? Release costs something, but resistance costs more. And the difference between the two is that the release produces motion, resistance produces heat. You're already in the ride. Take your hands off the sides, right? Take your hands off the sides because you cannot use the framework if you're still gripping. So, right now, in this moment, I'm asking you to make a decision. Stay in the ride, enjoy it, stop fighting emotion. Trust that the design knows where the landing is, right? And smarts, the data supports forward motion. The numbers are on the side of the release. Final bosses, you do not build this far to stop in the middle of the slide. Motivators, this is the community that needs you to finish the ride. And my warriors, you're already in motion. I need you to honor it, right? I need you to honor it. So, we talked about early on when you get to the slide and you freeze and you get a nudge. Let's talk about the nudge, right? So, you get that nudge because not everyone releases voluntarily. Some people get nudged, and then there's no shame in that. A nudge isn't punishment. A nudge is mercy in disguise, right? You know what the nudge looks like. The job was eliminated. The job that eliminated your position. What the hell? Before you had the courage to resign. The relationship that ended before you had the strength to walk away. The health scare that forced you to change the thing you knew you needed to change but kept postponing. The economy that shifted and took the comfortable option off the table. That was the nudge. Most people experience the nudge as catastrophe. What is going on with the sound, bro? Come on. Really? It's not easier, but it does get better, right? Those are different things. And I don't know why my mic is doing that, right? Better means more aligned. Better means closer to the design. Better means you arrived at the next chapter faster than you would have if you keep gripping until you were ready. Because ready is a story. Nobody is ready ever, right? Nobody. Ready is what you call after you already did the thing, right? I've been nudged, you've been nudged, we all been nudged hard, right? And um some of those nudges were not gentle, right? But they were still nudges, and those nudges acted as invitations for you to start reconsidering something, right? Those were structural events, life removing the option to keep gripping. And every single one of them, without exception, deposit me and you closer to the mission, right? The construction is happening in your life right now, whether you scheduled it or not. And if you nudge, and I'm sorry, and if the nudge already came for you, if you already in the air wondering where the landing is, I need you to hear this. The nudge was not the problem. The nudge was the launch. And you were built to handle the launch, or the architect would not have set the angle for the particular ride, right? You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not too broken, right? You're not too far behind. And you're in mid slide. And mid slide is exactly where the motion builds. So stop looking back at the top of the platform. Stop trying to calculate whether the nudge was fair. It does not matter if it was fair. It happened. And you're in the air, right? The only productive question now is what do I do right now to land right, right? And the answer to that question starts with releasing the grip. Between your point where you are in midair, that's where people try to grip. They reach back and from the thing when they're getting launched, right? And then they try to slow the descent. They negotiate with physics, and physics does not negotiate, right? You're going down. The only choice is how. Go clean, go fast, go aligned. Trust the design. Land ready for the next climb, right? Now, the slide has a landing zone, right? Every slide does. And here's what most people miss. The landing zone is not the end of the ride. The landing zone is just the launch pad for the next climb. Most people arrive at the landing zone exhausted, burned from the friction, raw from resistance, and they collapse at the bottom and call it survival. And that is a real response because survival is valid. But survival is not the ceiling, survival is the floor. And if you stay in survival mode at the landing zone, you will miss the next ladder entirely, right? The construction is specifically about building the landing zone while you're still in the ride. That is advanced operating. And that is what the doctoral frame calls sovereignty architecture, right? You're not waiting to land before you start planning. You're designing the landing while you were in the air because you already know the motion is going to deposit you somewhere, and you want that somewhere to be ready when you arrive, right? I started writing, I haven't even started my doctorate's official class date, but I've been writing it for over a year now, right? When I arrive, my dissertation will be in hand, ready, locked and loaded, right? That's about the landing zone. And that's what it looks like. And that's not fantasy, right? That's tangible. That's real. And that's operational, right? And when this season ends, as we go into the next season, the harvest, when the transition completes, when the slide delivers you to the bottom, what is waiting for you? Is it your infrastructure? Is there infrastructure? Is there a community? Is there a mission with a clear first move? Or are you going to arrive at the bottom and then start fighting out what comes out next, right? The ones who land best are the ones who built the landing zone before they needed it. They identified the community. They built the network before the need was urgent. They developed the skill set before the job description required it. They wrote the first chapter before they had a publisher. They started the businesses before they left the salary. They built the landing zone while they were still on the platform, right? Now, that's not luck, right? That's not luck. That's construction. Construction operating as designed. And that's what this arc is about. You build while you move. You design while you descend. You plan the landing while you are still in the air, because the window between release and arrival is the most productive window you would ever have. It is the window where the old grip is gone and the new structure is not yet load bearing, right? The window is pure creative energy. Most people waste it in panic. Don't panic. Use it. Use it to your advantage, right? And think about what you're building right now that will be standing when you land. Name it. Commit it. Start if you haven't started, because the landing zone does not build itself. And arriving at the bottom to nothing is a choice, right? Stop landing at the bottom to nothing. The same way staying gripped is a choice. You need to choose the build, right? You need to choose the build. Now, I'm going to go over just a few minutes, right? So bear with me. Stay with me, right? Stay with me. You know, I want to talk about something before we close, right? And I want to dismantle something that has been quietly sabotaging more people than anything else, right? Anything else that I've mentioned, or just period, right? And that thing is the waiting for permission. Think about that. Some of you are gripping out of fear. Some of you are gripping because you're waiting for someone to tell you that it's okay to let go. You're waiting for the validation, right? The green light, the consensus from the people around you that the release is reasonable, responsible, and approved. You're waiting for the permission slip, right? And it's not coming. It's not coming. Not because people around you don't love you. Some of them do. But because nobody in your life has access to the blueprint of what you were built for except you. Nobody else is standing inside your design. Nobody else feels the angle of your particular slide from the inside. They can observe it from the outside. They can offer opinions about it from the outside, but the lived experience of your specific calling, your specific assignment, your specific season of the construction, that is sovereign information. And sovereign information does not require an outside signature, right? The permission slip was always yours to write. Look, I did not get permission to do any of the things I did, right? I did not get consensus from any people around me. I did not wait for the environment to signal that it was safe to do it. And I made sovereign decisions over and over again based on sovereign information. I knew what I was built for. I knew the grip was costing more than the safety net was worth. I wrote the permission slip myself and I executed on it. And look, that's not vanity and it's not arrogance. It's alignment. There is a difference. Arrogance says, I know better than everyone. Alignment says, I know what I was built for and I'm going to operate accordingly. Alignment does not require the crowd to agree. It requires you to know the design well enough to trust it when the people around you cannot see what you see, right? And the rebirth this season is sovereignty arc, right? Every episode in Arc 4 is about reclaiming the authority of your own construction over your own timeline, over your own definition of what the landing zone looks like. And reclaiming that authority begins with refusing to make it contingent on external approval. You've been waiting. A lot of you have. I know. Waiting for the right person to see your potential. Waiting for the right opportunity to present itself clearly enough for the decision feels obvious. Waiting for the season to get hard enough that the release just feels justified. But here's the truth of the matter: the release is already justified, the potential is already visible, and the opportunity is already present. You just keep asking for permission to see it that nobody else has the authority to grant. I need you to write the permission slip, date it today, sign your name on it, get down that slide, right? Now, as we get ready to close, right? As we get ready to close, this is the slide rule in full effect, right? These are the rules. Rule number one: the slide was built to move you, not to hold you, not to store you, not to give you a permanent residence at the top while you calculate the odds. It was designed for motion, and your presence on it is not a request, it's an assignment. Rule number two: resistance does not prevent the ride, it only makes the ride harder. You're going to move through the season. The only variable is whether you move through it with your hands on your sides or with your hands free and your body aligned with the design. The outcome is the same, the experience is not. And then rule number three: the friction tax, and it compounds. Every day of resistance is a day of energy you cannot recover. Stop banking on catching up later. The cost of today's grip becomes tomorrow's deficit. Release now. The economy of your life cannot afford extended resistance. And then there's rule number four: the landing zone must be built before you land. Construction does not wait for completion of the current phase, it overlaps, it anticipates, it builds what is needed for the next chapter while you're finishing the current one. If you're not building your landing zone right now, you're already behind, right? And then there's rule number five: the permission slip is always yours. It was always yours. No external authority has access to your blueprint. No crowd consensus can validate what sovereign information already confirmed. You know what you're built for. Stop waiting for someone else to know it louder, right? And then rule number six: the community is the landing crew. You do not have to slide alone, and you're not supposed to. The four pillars of community exist because the ride is designed for collective motion. Find your crew, build the ecosystem, leave evidence at the bottom for the ones who are still at the top, right? And then rule number seven: the scar tissue does not get to drive, it gets to inform. The marks from previous resistance are data, not destiny. They tell you what to watch for, not what to become. Let the healing complete. Stop picking a scab. Let the design do what the design was built to do. Those are the slide rule laws. They're not suggestions. They're not motivational content. They are structural truths operating in your life right now, whether you acknowledge them or not. Acknowledging just gives you the ability to cooperate with them. And cooperation is always faster than resistance. The rebirth is the season of acknowledgement, of calling the season what it is, of naming the grip, of seeing the design without the filter of fear, of deciding that the ride is worth more than the safety of the sides. The construction is what happens when you put the acknowledgement into action. When you stop analyzing the slide and start moving on it. When you stop researching the landing zone and start building it. When you stop drafting the permission slip and start signing it. That is where we are. That is what this episode was built for. Not inspiration, infrastructure. Now it's time for you guys to go build, right? It's time for you to go build as we close. And if you're still here, thank you for staying, right? Thank you, right? We talked about the slide rule, right? And I want to close with this, right? And I want to close the same way I opened it. right? You're the kid at the top of the slide. But this time the picture is different. This time the kid is looking around and he's asking himself, or you're asking yourself, I should say, right? And this time you're not 6 years old, frozen by fear. You are whatever age you are today in this season, with everything you've been through, everything you carry, everything you've built, and everything you've lost, and everything you've rebuilt, right? And are still in the process of completing. It is you at the top of the most important slide of your life, right? And the question is not whether you will go, because you will go. The motion is already in play. The question is what you choose to do with your hands for the rest of the ride. And you already know right from wrong. You already know the play, right? You can keep them on the side. You can maintain, you can slow the descent and pay the friction tax and arrive at the bottom raw and exhausted and still. And guess what? You will survive it. You will, because you're built for survival, right? Or you can release. You can lift your hands off the sides. You can orient. You can orient your body toward the landing zone you've been building. You can let the angle do its work. You can trust the design that set this season in motion long before you understood what it was building. And you can arrive at the bottom with enough momentum to stand up, look forward, and begin the next climb before the slide even finishes delivering, right? That's the choice. That's always the choice. Rebirth is not destination, it is direction. And construction is not a phase, it is practice. Every day you show up and build something that did not exist yesterday, every day you release something that was meant for you to be permanent. Every day you trust the design a little more than you did the day before. That is the construction in motion. That's the rebirth breathing, right? Listen, I am the Final Boss. This has been the Final Boss podcast, special guest Thursday, solo edition, episode number 259, season 4, the rebirth arc for the construction. We go live every Thursday at 9 p.m. Guest or no guest, town hall, no town hall. We build and continue to build. We release and continue to release, and we land and we continue to land, right? Smarts, the data was supposed to release. Trust the numbers. Final bosses, the empire does not get built from the top of the slide. It gets built at the bottom. It's time to get there. Motivators, your testimony is the most powerful tool in the community. You need to use it. Warriors, you were built for this season specifically, not despite what you've been through, because of it. Get down that slide and enjoy the ride. And if you enjoy the show, don't gatekeep. Share it with at least 3 people who needs to hear this information, right? Share it with 3 people, right? And if I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. And always remember, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but there's an even heavier pain that comes with regret. I am here. We are here, right? Be balanced, be equal, and be smart. That's our show. I'll see you guys again on Sunday for Sitting Down Sundays, episode number 260, as the season continues. 40 episodes away from season 5, the harvest. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for staying. Thank you for being here. Have a great night.
They thought it was over. They thought the fire burned out. But fire doesn't destroy the chosen. It forges them. Hosted by Turbo, the CEO. New energy, new strategy. Every setback builds strength. Every loss builds strategy. And every leader rises again. The rebirth begins. Season 4. Bigger conversations. Real strategy. Power moves only. Monday motivation. Tech Tuesday. Merger Wednesday. Special guest Thursdays. Sit down Sundays. Season 4 starts now. Tap in or get left behind. Because bosses don't wait, they lead.